Imagine you're in the middle of the African savanna, 300,000 years ago. The sun's heat ripples through the tall grasses. A group of early humans is gathered near a river, crafting tools, tanning hides, whispering to their children. But there's something different about these humans. Their faces are more modern, their skulls more rounded, their eyes more knowing. It's a haunting familiarity, like staring into the past and seeing a version of ourselves still baking under the primal African sun. Meet Homo Helmei, the enigmatic ancestor that might have been us before we were truly us. A name that barely flickers in most textbooks. A species that lingers in the shadows of paleoanthropology. And yet, they might be one of the most crucial keys to understanding how we became human. Let's rewind the fossil clock. In the 1930s, at a site called Florisbad in South Africa, a skull was unearthed. It was old, very old, but not just in the geological sense. It was strange. The skull had a massive brow ridge reminiscent of older hominins like Homo erectus or Neanderthals. But its rounded cranium whispered of something new, something familiar. It looked, eerily, like us. Not quite Homo sapiens, but not quite not. At first, no one could agree what to call it. Some researchers argued it was simply a variant of early Homo sapiens. Others insisted it deserved its own species. Eventually, the name Homo Helmei was suggested, honoring German geologist Helm. But the debate never really ended. Helmei slipped through the cracks of scientific consensus. Too modern for the old crowd, too primitive for the new one. An evolutionary ghost. Yet maybe, just maybe, that ambiguity is the message. Because what if Homo Helmei was the evolutionary bridge? The missing puzzle piece. The threshold where human consciousness began to flicker into flame. Think of human evolution not as a straight line, but a complex web. Threads of species overlapping, diverging, reconnecting. Homo erectus, Homo heidelbergensis, the Neanderthals, the Denisovans, and then, somewhere in the foggy crossroads of time, Helmei. Helmei lived between 300,000 and 200,000 years ago, a period of explosive change in human prehistory. Across Africa, new technologies were emerging. Better stone blades, complex hunting tools, and perhaps most remarkably, symbolic behavior. They may have used ochre to paint their bodies, red, yellow, ceremonial. They might have carved shapes or patterns into bones. They may have adorned themselves with beads, shells, or feathers. These weren't just survival tools. These were acts of identity, signs of thought, culture. What kind of world did they inhabit? Africa at that time was not the dry, dusty continent we often imagine. It was vibrant, teeming with life. Megafauna roamed the savannas, lions twice the size of today's, elephants as big as buses, giant buffalo, and towering giraffes. The environment was rich, yet perilous. To survive here wasn't just about strength, it demanded memory, cooperation, innovation, the very traits that define us. So how did Helmei live? We know they used tools. The Florisbad site contained evidence of Levallois technology, a sophisticated way of shaping stone tools. It required planning, anticipation, an understanding of geometry. In other words, a mind that could think several steps ahead. We also know that Helmei likely hunted in groups, gathered edible plants, and may have moved in seasonal migrations. They were social. They lived in communities, and perhaps, just perhaps, they told stories. Around fires, beneath stars. Imagining. Here's the chilling thought. The line between Helmei and us might be so thin, it's invisible. If you were to meet one today, if a Helmei individual were dressed in modern clothes and sitting silently on a park bench, would you even notice? Their posture, their expression, the way their hands moved, might all feel familiar. They wouldn't grunt or growl. They'd observe. They'd think. Maybe they'd even smile. They'd be almost human. But what does that even mean? In fact, some anthropologists argue that Homo Helmei didn't disappear at all. Instead, They may have become us, blending into early Homo sapiens populations through interbreeding. Their genes might still live on, dormant in our DNA, echoing in our instincts. And that opens the door to a bigger question. What did they pass on? Helmei's legacy might be more than anatomical. It could be emotional, cognitive, cultural. The first inklings of ritual, of memory, of imagination. Their minds might have been the crucibles in which myths first brewed, the ancestors who first asked why. Their skulls weren't just shaped like ours. Their thoughts might have been too. So why is Homo Helmei so forgotten? Maybe it's because science, like history, prefers clean stories. A beginning, a middle, an end. But evolution laughs at that. It's messy, blurred. The past isn't a staircase. It's a tangled jungle of overlapping paths. And Helmei? They're right in the thicket. That's what makes them fascinating. And frustrating. We don't know if they sang, if they danced, if they buried their dead. But maybe, just maybe, they did. And maybe those behaviors seeded what became our civilization. Imagine if Helmei had built cities, developed agriculture, invented writing. What would a Helmei philosophy sound like? A Helmei version of music? Of mathematics? Could they have coexisted with us today, like Tolkien's elves and men, two intelligent species sharing one planet? Or would we have feared them? Marginalized them? Waged war? Because, let's be honest, even among ourselves, we struggle to accept difference, and yet, Helmei might still whisper to us, in the way a child dreams, in the way a story forms on your lips, in the awe you feel when you stare at the stars and wonder if someone once did the same, hundreds of thousands of years ago. They passed us more than bones. They passed the spark. So the next time you find yourself gazing into a flame, watching it flicker and dance, think of them. Think of the unknown woman who once painted her skin red with ochre. The man who knapped stone in silence, imagining a spear. The child who stared at the night sky and felt something sacred. They didn't just give us tools, they gave us wonder. Homo Helmei may be forgotten in textbooks, but maybe, just maybe, they're remembered in every poem, every song, every time we dare to create. If stories like this stir something inside you, if you want more tales of the ancient, the obscure, the beautiful, subscribe to 5 Minutes of Culture. Less than 1% of our viewers ever do, but your subscription is what keeps this fire alive. Be the spark. Be the storyteller. Be the one who remembers.